All right. Well, good morning, everyone. We're doing a morning record today. So, welcome back. This is episode number 13 of The Next Perspective. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I've had a chance to read a little bit of the book of this next guest, and I just think some of the perspectives that he's going to bring us today are just valuable, not only just military lessons, but just life lessons from leadership to followership to just being a good person and trying to always strive to be your best. So I am with veteran and Chief Master Sergeant Robert Rogers, I'm sorry, and author of The Paperback Mentor. So I just want to say thanks for getting up with me this morning. I know a little earlier for you on the Mountain Time Zone than it is here in Central Time Zone, but I really do appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to just have this conversation with me.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here and love what you're doing and excited to hopefully contribute in some meaningful way.
Yeah, I think this is going to be great. So let's just start with your Air Force career. Why did you join the Air Force? Where have you been? What has your career looked like so far, and what you're doing now?
Okay, so I'm originally from Fort Worth, Texas.
Okay.
Joined the military because I just really ran out of options. I tried to go to two colleges, it didn't work out, had a car accident, didn't have a car, and went to the recruiter and was just like, hey, I just need to get out of here. I need a change of environment, really. What do you got going here soon? And he's asked, what do you want to do? And I said, something in radio because I always wanted to work in like a radio station.
Oh,
And
that's cool.
he named off a job that had signals in the title, which I wasn't real sure
Yeah.
about. Next thing you know, I became an intelligent signals analyst.
Oh, wow.
Showed up
Okay.
at tech school. Showed up at tech school thinking I was going to see like production equipment for like a radio station, and none of that existed. So was a little bit out of my element, but I really joined to just see something different and do something different because I'd always wanted to travel the world, but it's
Yeah.
expensive. So might as well learn something while you're getting to go and see new places. Best decision I ever made in my life. I've loved it. Been in now about 20 total years. I'm about 17 active duty years worth of time.
Okay.
So most of it's been on active duty in some format, but I hit my 20-year mark this year, and I wouldn't have changed a thing. Everything has been great. Lived in Europe and Asia. 5 tours between military and contractor in
Mm.
the Middle East, and 9 bases I think total. And I've done everything from space operations and intel. I've been an instructor for NSA for a couple years, intel analyst in a few different places doing U2 and technical ELANT. Did some acquisition stuff at a Right Pat for a while.
Okay.
And now I work for US Indo-PACOM running their joint intel operations centers kind of across the globe.
Wow. That's so a lot of quite a different stuff.
Yeah, I love variety, and I always have. I don't understand how some people can do like 20 or 30 years in the same job. Like, luckily with the Air Force, right? They'll move you me, it's been every 2 or 3 years. So I get variety while also getting to learn new jobs and see new places. So I think it's the only way I could have ever stayed in a job for 20 years is the move and the change and the seeing different things, which has been just great for me. It's been an honor to serve, and I want to continue to serve for at least another 6 to 10 years. Like I got no plans to go anywhere soon.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's one of the there's always hassles when you got a PCS or move or the deployments and stuff, but I always take that with, sure there's frustrations with it, but yeah, like you, just that opportunity to go see something new every few years is just, it kind of reinvigorates you a little bit. I just feel for the people that you hear like, oh, how long have you been at this, base or installation? And they'll, something like 7, 8 years. And my heart kind of breaks a little bit just because I've had that opportunity like you just to every 3, maybe 4 years, get to go PCS, go see something new experiences.
Oh yeah, I mean, and it changes your world. Like whenever you grow up in one town, like your perspective is so limited.
Yeah.
But whenever you get out there and you see a different culture and how they respond to challenges, or how they build community around things, or like in Europe, and we were talking before we started recording, how they can just slow down a little bit and they can share a
Yeah.
meal. and have a real engaging conversation, right? And those things start to create who you want to be and who you want your family to be, and how you interact with your airmen, and those things, like, those are invaluable, and you don't learn them unless you go get those experiences. And in Europe, when I first got there, get frustrated because the service is terrible, and I wanted my food like in 15 minutes, like I
Right.
get at Chili's, and
Yeah.
it doesn't come for an hour. But then when you learn to slow down and you go, okay, like, maybe
Mhm.
we can just have a conversation with the people I'm here with, and have a beer, and just kind of get to know each other, then you really start to enjoy things like that. And so I think you only get those things through the experiences that you have, because you can't be told to slow down. You can't be told
Right.
to do any of these things. You just have to live it, and then it becomes kind of a part of who you are.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that part of the lifestyle. I think, as you mentioned, it's so easy to just get into that fast pace, next, move, move, move. What's the next task? What's the next mission that I have to accomplish or clean up or do? And just that forced slow down time is definitely needed to recharge.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, experiences getting out of your one base or your hometown, it really helps you kind of view the world in a different way and interact with people in a very different way. At least in my experience, it has.
Yeah, and you've had a lot of experience. I've read a portion of your book yet. I'm not done yet. But you've wrote a book called The Paperback Mentor, and it's just different insights about your life, leadership, work, family. You kind of really open yourself up quite a bit throughout the book as far as just different obstacles that you've faced and overcome. Let's just talk about the book a little bit. What inspired you to even go about writing it, and what was that journey like for you, even trying to write it?
I would say I actually started writing it as a therapy. People ask me why I wrote it, and at first I didn't really know why. But when I look back at some of the stories that end up becoming chapters, I was writing those things for therapy, just trying to figure out why I was having these challenges at work and what
Mm,
I was going through, and really just trying to put some deliberate time into figuring things out that I just couldn't figure out because I didn't have the emotional intelligence or the
yeah.
awareness to do those things. So it was really just me writing to figure out my own stuff. And then eventually I started to share these stories just person to person, and I found that a lot of people didn't have or don't have good leadership or mentorship in
Mm,
their life. They just don't have somebody they connect with, or everybody's trying to, especially within a unit, they're trying to be a certain way or do a certain thing to impress or whatever, right? And so I decided, I'm going to cut through all that. It doesn't benefit me at all if you take my advice or you don't take my advice, but it's raw, right? And it's talking about my experiences, and it's being vulnerable and saying, look, here, I made a ton of mistakes. I continue to make mistakes. And that's okay, right? Because we're always learning. Like Brene Brown says, I'm not here to be right. I'm here to get it right. And so I'm always striving to do
yeah.
that, to get it right. And so I share my experiences because it's authentic, right? We all make mistakes, and who wants to learn from a perfect leader? I don't. Like, I want somebody who's got scars, because that shows that they've been in battle, like
Yeah.
they've dealt with stuff. They know how to overcome challenges. So I really wrote it so I could speak to people in a non-competitive, you know, non how do you say, like, in an environment where they don't have to
Mm,
worry about what my intentions are, right? Like, they can just get the raw
right.
data, they can evaluate their personal experiences, and then they can take it for what it's worth, and use it however they see fit. So it's really for those people who need good leadership and mentorship that maybe don't have it and are looking for a new source of information or ideas to kind of help themselves grow in their career or in their personal life.
Yeah, absolutely. There was you mentioned it, and so I ear tabbed it because I wanted to ask you specifically that you wrote specifically in one chapter. You were in a duty section where at first you were just you were doing your thing and you just were not getting recognized, and so you decided, well, I'll change my ways and I'll start being a carbon copy of what I think my supervisors or leadership want me to be. And you started to actually get praise for your behavioral change, but inside it was just tearing you up. And you had wrote that it was so bad that one day you couldn't even go into the building, just because you were so emotionally drained.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the funny thing is, I was actually being recognized on a very regular basis. At that assignment, I was there for about 10 quarters. Six of those 10, I was a senior NCO of the quarter. I was senior NCO of the year. I was all
Yeah,
these so-called accolades, but
right.
I still wasn't even living up to my commanders or our leadership team's expectations for who I was supposed to be and what I was supposed to do. So honestly, I felt like my career was being jeopardized, and so I started to alter my behaviors. And there was one member who they seemed to really like how he led, and so I started trying to emulate his stuff, and they really responded well to it. But I felt like an imposter because I wasn't this guy, and these weren't
Yeah.
my strengths. I'm a ENTP. I'm an extrovert. Like I love possibilities. I love talking. I love emotions. And this member was not. He was not those things. And that's not to take away from his leadership style or thing, but it just wasn't me. So trying to be someone who I wasn't was incredibly hard. And I think most people I meet in across our careers, you have a leader or a mentor who tries to get you to emulate their career, and that's not your
Yeah.
career. That's not your path. So, making sure that you help build people in the way they want to be built, I found is so incredibly important because we all have things to contribute to the mission, to our people, right? We all have our strengths, we all have our weaknesses, and how we are developed will help us either lean into our strengths or start to try to develop skills that really aren't beneficial to us and or for our teams. So yeah, I was being recognized, but not in the right way. And behind the scenes, they didn't like what I was
Yeah.
doing. And so yeah, eventually I just hated coming into work because I didn't feel like I could be genuine. And when you're not authentic, right, when you feel like an imposter every day going into work and pretending to be something or someone else, it's just not sustainable, and it's definitely not great for your mental health. And so I struggled. I had a really hard time. I lost all my hair during that period. I was fully bald due to autoimmune disease. So it was a tough period, but you know what, having gotten through it, I'm much stronger, and I'm more confident about who I am as a leader and what I want to do and how I want to build people. So it was that negative experience ended up being a great positive for me moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, but I think, and you mentioned it too, and you can elaborate. Like, was that the first time, or was that just a real time for you that you were just like, I just need to be myself and the best version of what that will be, regardless of what type of section or office or squadron you're a part of?
So definitely wasn't the first time, but it was the first time like it was that sustained for that period of time. And if you got into some parts of the book, you'll read like, one of the things that I didn't get well in my first part of my career was feedback. So, I
Mm.
was doing things that I thought were good, right? And people were saying, man, you're such a hard worker. You keep doing what you're doing great. But I had all kinds of rough edges and sharp edges, right? I had tons of them, but people didn't have the courage to tell me what I needed to change, right? And so I
Mm.
continued to do the things that were getting praised. And so I was getting to be what at that time was my authentic version, but I didn't know the things I needed to change. And so therefore I kept on doing things that weren't good behaviors, right? I didn't have, I didn't build teamwork. I got in there and I got stuff done, right? Throw people
Yeah.
under the bus, bull in the china shop kind of thing to get things done. But you realize that there's a wake in those actions at a certain point, and nobody was telling me about what the wake was. They were just seeing me getting things done. Eventually, though, it caused me to be an ineffective leader because I just ruined relationships along the way, trying to get things done, and not taking any BS and cutting through all the red tape, if you will, and trying to do all these things that I thought were good and positive. But because I wasn't getting that feedback I needed to do it the right way and to develop my skills, my soft skills, I really, I should have not been doing those things, and had somebody had the courage to call me out on it and write it in my EPR and mark me down, I probably would have changed those behaviors a lot sooner. But because those leaders didn't have the courage to tell me what I needed to fix, I kept on doing the behaviors that were getting lauded. And you know what? It took me a long time to become what I consider to be a pretty decent leader, because I had to overcome all these things that, I thought where I was doing well, and now I had to adjust my entire mindset to say, maybe this isn't what I need to do. But I spent 10 years developing my what I'm doing this way because I was told I was doing a good job and I was
Right.
getting awards and all this other stuff, and I thought that was the right thing, but it wasn't. And that's it's hard to unlearn things, as I'm sure many of your listeners know. Like once you learn it, it sticks.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So for you, you're talking about feedback a little bit. Was there a mentor in your life that gave you a wake up call, or was it just more self realization that led you to like, hey, I need to change, or or I'm hurting people or the organization by the way I'm doing stuff.
Yeah, yeah. At my assignment out here at Schriever, I had a mentor who is still a good
Okay.
friend of mine. He called me out on it, and he wrote me down the first EPR I ever had marked down. I
Mhm.
think I was over 10 years into my career at that point. And he had a broad conversation with me. And at first I
Yeah.
was like, what is this guy talking about? But at the same time, I
Yeah.
knew my behaviors weren't great. But I mean, he stopped me in my tracks and he called me out on it, and we had a conversation. He was respectful and he was kind, but he's like, here's what you're doing, and this is why this isn't effective, and here's what I think you need to do. And yeah, I didn't meet the expectations he laid out in our feedbacks,
Mm.
and he marked me down on my EPR, and I was just like, who is this guy, right? But
Right.
as we had these conversations, I learned that he was absolutely right, and I started to make adjustments because he held me accountable, right?
Mm.
And he incentivized that change for me, because without if you don't have an incentive to change, then you're not going to change. And if you don't
Right.
know what to change, you're not going to change. But he not only incentivized it, but he held me accountable, and he said, if you want to make rank, if you want to be these next tier leaders, you have to fix these things. And I'm positive he was going to keep marking me accordingly until I started to make the behavior changes that I need to be effective at those next tiers.
So what was that change process like for you? Going through a more, more authority style, I imagine, to a empathetic, and you had mentioned earlier, learning some of those soft skills to really impact relationally in a leadership manner.
Oh, it was very difficult. I was that high performing tech sergeant, right? Like I said, I got things done at all costs,
Right.
and that makes you an ineffective leader. Whenever you start doing things like that, people don't want to help people who do those things. So understanding, especially the hardest transition I've had in my career was from tech sergeant to master sergeant.
Mm.
And I tell people all the time, it took me at least 4 years to be
Okay.
able to become a decent senior NCO, because I kept being a high performing tech sergeant as a master sergeant, and people saw a person with that extra stripe on their rooftop there, and but this person was being, rude or blunt, or just kind of that bull in the china shop kind of thing, like I said earlier.
Yeah.
And they were like, who is this guy? Like, he's not creating team, like he's still just trying to get things done. And when you start realizing that things aren't working out the way you want to, you have to really take an inventory of yourself and say, like what is happening? Like something changed and nobody tells you. But when you become, master sergeant, a senior NCO, building teams is really what it's about. Making sure that people feel valued,
Right.
making sure that you understand how your words are being received, because they have a little bit more power because of your position. So
Yeah.
whenever you do things, you have to make sure that you understand, and understanding the different situations that people are in and how their lives are different, with taking care of elderly parents or single parents, and make sure that you can withhold a standard, right? You have to maintain your standard, but also making sure that those people aren't feeling alienated and isolated given their situation, right? Because most of the time they didn't put themselves in that situation. They didn't want to have to take in an ailing parent and make sure that they got to all their medical appointments and everything else. Like, this person's struggling at home, their mind is racing with the care of their parent, and their heart hurts because of the stuff that they're dealing with at home. And so making sure that you just be a human, right? And once you go through some of
Yeah.
those transitions in life, a divorce, or some parenting challenges or whatever, you start to understand, like, these things they're not compartmentalized. Like, this, you can't keep this at home, and this is work. Like, you try,
Yeah.
but they bleed over. And so as a leader,
Yeah.
either you can push that person who's struggling with those difficulties and make them feel isolated and cause more stress, or you can adapt for that period of time while still holding your standards, right? Adapt for that period of time to make sure that person can get their life in order, so that way they can understand that they're a valued member of your team, and that we can adjust things, so that way we can help you out, so you can take care of the things that are important in your life. I tell everyone the Air Force is temporary. At a certain
Yeah.
point, we're all going to leave the Air Force, right? But your kids are going to be there, hopefully. Your spouse is going to be there, hopefully. And your parents are going to be there, hopefully. And at the end of the day, if you put the Air Force above all those things all the time, you're going to be alone. And I've seen a lot of retirement ceremonies and a lot of promotion ceremonies that lacked family, because that person continued to
Yeah.
put the Air Force's priorities before their own. And you have to do that at times, right? Service before self. But there's a certain time you need to communicate to your leadership team that I need to take a knee. I'm
Yeah.
going through some stuff, and I need your help to help me find that balance. Because if you keep tasking me and asking me to do the things that you're asking me to do, I can't achieve that. And a lot of those people leave the military because they can't take the pressures of their personal and professional lives at the same time, and we lose amazing people because of it.
Yeah. We do, and I think it does take a lot to learn how to do that balance correctly, because when a lot of people, majority when they come in, they are single, and so that first relationship with the Air Force is the Air Force marriage, and then then you get into another marriage, and a lot of times, especially, I started out mill to mill before my wife got out. And so that's a double balance of two people trying to marry the Air Force and marry each other and have kids and live life, and it, there were some rough years because you're both trying to climb your own ladder in your careers a little bit and try to maintain a home life. In your book, you start with a balance conversation, and you were pretty honest too that you were not balanced in your career, and it costed you quite a bit. And you made it a point like, hey, if I'm not balancing my work and my life correctly, I'm going to suffer in both. So what was that process like for you? And what was the light bulb that finally went off that you said, hey, I am way too far in the Air Force weeds, and I am not taking what I need to do care of what I need to do at home.
Well, to begin, I constantly lose balance. So
Yeah.
just as you know, I am not perfect. The COVID
Yeah.
stuff, and being a teaching parent at home with three different part time job, like, I still fail to maintain balance. But one of the things that I go to whenever I do is this a concept I've developed called taking back 1%. And with that, you dedicate 1% of your time, 14.4 minutes per day, or 100.8 minutes per week, to do something just for you, right? And whenever you can have a set time that you're trying to achieve every week to do something for you, whether that's personal development, or for me a lot of time it's physical fitness, getting to the gym and making sure
Hmm.
that I take care of that, because that helps so many other areas of my life. When you can work towards a taking back 1% goal, then you can start to create balance again. And sometimes you don't achieve it, right? But
Yeah.
on my watch, whenever I start my cardio, I hit start, and then whenever I stop for that day, I hit stop. And I'm always looking to get an hour and 40 a week. And sometimes I fall short, and sometimes I hit it. But it's a goal that I can work on that helps me deliberately think about balance, for myself, right? That self care piece, which I think is the thing that we almost always ignore whenever everything else is going on. We just toss our own personal stuff and our side and our needs to the side.
Yeah.
And then in addition to that, I have the three chamber hourglass, and that helps me to visualize how to change balance. So each side, my career, family, and self, are the three sides of that hourglass, and then the sand in the middle is represents the time that I spend in each different thing. And I try to rotate that so I can visualize, okay, I've done a lot of Air Force stuff right now. I need to shift my focus, right? I need to pour back into my family and maybe just take a week off to go spend with my kids or my wife, or go take my wife on a date night or something. So helping me visualize turning over that hourglass, that three chamber hourglass, to pour sand into those other aspects of my life, just helps me have a visual of what I need to do, and where I've been putting my time and energy.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I kind of, for myself, I use the idea of self-discipline, especially as far as taking care of myself. You wrote that you're a 4 a.m. get up guy, go do stuff. I like to do that on my own routine. I just find 4 a.m. is the perfect time to wake up. There's no one really else around. I can, like you said, I get my cup of coffee, I head to the gym, I do my thing, and then, by the time you know it, I'm already 2 hours, 3 hours ahead of schedule, and everybody else is just rolling out of bed. And even my wife, when I'm not doing those things, she'll even say, "You didn't get up and go to the gym today, did you?" And just that little notice, right? Because when you're taking care of yourself, and when you're not taking care of yourself, um, and it's evident to the people around you, even.
Yeah, and like you said, like I like the early morning. I'm not waking up at 4. I'm waking up at 5:30 right now because our schedule shifted, so I'm able to sleep in a little bit more. And my desire is to sleep all day. I would.
Right.
I'm a swing shift guy if I could be, but what
Yeah,
I
same.
found is, if I wake up the same time that the kids wake up, I'm just scrambling, right? I tell people
Yeah.
my morning looks like a freshly kicked anthill, right? Like just things happening everywhere, and you just don't, like, you can't get a hold of it, and it's just like this sense of urgency, right? You're just constantly scrambling from one thing to the next, and you never feel in control of your day. But when I get
Yeah.
up at right now 5:30, depending on the day, and I read my scriptures, and I kind of
Yep.
have my coffee, and I have my food, and then the kids wake up, right? I'm able to transition into helping them get ready, and we get to school on time, which means I go get to my civilian job on time, and everything
Right.
feels like, I'm in control of that. And that's just such a much more peaceful way to operate, as opposed to waking up when they wake up, or waking up late and then just scrambling around and feeling that angst all day, because you never really got a hold of your day. It's always two steps ahead of you, and you're just really responding to everything that's happening throughout the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the University of Minnesota football coach. He does their practices in the morning, and I love the reason. A reporter asked him, "Why do you have the guys practice at 6 a.m.?" And he's like, "Well, no one can fail a test at 6 a.m. No one's girlfriend can break up with them at 6 a.m. Nothing in their life can happen at 6 a.m." He's like, I get them first thing in football, and I know that I have them for football. I'll take care of the rest of their life when it happens, but at least I know I can coach football first. And I just thought that, and I just thought it was a great analogy, like, and especially when you use it towards your own self care. When you get up a little bit earlier and you start your day, just you alone with your self focus, there's less distractions.
Right, and it doesn't take away from other people, so it's not selfish. When I was working full-time military writing the book, I was waking up in the morning and trying to hit 250 words a day. But I couldn't do that with all the kids running around, and my wife, and my schedules. Like, I couldn't, so I made time in the morning
Yeah,
to, chip away at my goals, and chip away at my dreams, because that's where the time existed. I just had to get up to meet that time where it existed, right? I had to stop being lazy, or it wasn't going to happen. So, but it's not selfish when you wake up at that hour, because nobody else wants to be up there with you doing stuff. Like, they want to be sleeping. Like, so do I, but this is my time. Even when my kids come out, sometimes they'll see me out here reading the Bible, or reading, whatever book I'm going through at the time. I just say,
yeah,
hey, this is my time. I wake up specifically for this time, so I need you to go eat breakfast on your own. And whenever I get through with my time, then I'll be able to make time for you, and help you out with whatever you do. So I make sure that those healthy boundaries are in place. So I'm not constantly having to compromise my needs for the needs of, kids, because kids always need something.
they do. Well, and yeah, and you made a good point there. Just um, the power of no, and not in a selfish way. I'm learning. I'm trying to learn that balance because I'm one of those people that if someone asks for help, like I want to try and stop what I'm doing and help and assist them. But I'm trying to be more on point of, what, I have things that I need to take care of. Um,
Right.
you're going to have to, I can help you eventually, but I have to do this thing first.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much freedom in the word no at times
Mm.
when you know that, like, if you say yes to this, that's going to impact your wife or your husband, or that's
Yeah.
going to impact time that you have with your kids. And are you really going to feel better because you became some martyr, right? You became a hero for one person. Does that make you at the end of the day feel better about yourself, or does that make your family life better, or does that make you better, or are you doing it for the selfish reason of feeling like a hero to that one person, because and that high that comes with that. So when you understand the intent behind
Yeah.
why you keep saying yes and why you keep jeopardizing the time and effort you put with your family or even with yourself, then it helps you to put things in perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, cause too, I just put on master a month ago or so and I changed sections. And what I've already noticed that I've had to learn is, like you've said, there's a lot of times an airman's processing in a program or doing a thing with a part, and they stumble upon a problem or an issue that they need to research, and I've had to stop myself from jumping onto the computer and started doing the inputs because then they're not learning anything that way, and that makes the team less. And then like, okay, cool, the task got done, but in a month when I'm not there and it comes up again, they're just going to sit there and be like, well, Sergeant Den just did this last time. I don't know what to do. And then nothing will get done.
Absolutely. Control
Mm.
F is easy. Sometimes I'll tell them what AFI, if there's
Yeah.
multiple AFIs that kind of can cover a certain subject. So I'll clarify the AFI. But other than that, right, Control F, go find it, right?
Yeah.
Don't take my word for it, because oftentimes what I find is I will give advice based off of an AFI that I read 3 years ago, which has
Right.
now changed in some way that I didn't know, and there's a whole new publication or an update to it. And here I am spouting off old information that is
Yeah.
no longer applicable to a situation that could be resolved given the updates to these AFIs. But I even whenever people need me to do so, I go back and I reread the AFI because they get updated. And if we're not up to date on the information, then we're not providing good information to the people who are making the decisions, right? So you even have to reread just to make sure that you're giving the accurate information to the decision makers.
Yeah. And the guys doing the stuff. Yeah. I've had to say, like you, I've done that thing where, they'll ask a question. I'll be like, yeah, AFI, whatever says whatever it said 4 or 5 years ago. And then you go look it up and there's a whole new paragraph and you're like, oh, hey guys, that thing I said we were going to do. Yeah, we can't do that. And then
Right.
you look, then you start to lose trust in your team a little bit because then they'll say, "Oh, does this guy or girl know what they're even talking about?"
Yeah, and on that topic, the whole term experts, I
Mm.
I struggle with when people call themselves an expert, because I believe that title is incredibly perishable.
Yeah, yeah,
And even if you don't know in that moment, in that time, if you hadn't researched it like yesterday or the day before, right, things change. And intel, things change all the time, and I've watched people give advice as an
mm.
expert that information wasn't accurate, that information wasn't timely anymore, and that can cause a lot of issues. So whenever you call yourself an expert, people either think that you're not open to learning, which can become a problem, or they seek to humble you, right? They want to go play
Yeah,
Trump the dummy or whatever else, and then it's not a productive relationship. So I encourage people to not use AFI and RAs and all the UDMs and UFPMs. Like whenever people say, "Well, I'm an expert at that," like I would caution you to not say that you're an expert on anything, because it gives the impression that you're not willing to learn, you're not willing to listen, or that you think you know more than other people. So therefore, somebody's going to say, when they get that new paragraph, like you said, they're going to come flying in from the left with it, like, I don't think so. Listen to this, and you're like, oh,
right. And then you got nothing to stand on.
right, no longer an expert, and now you're embarrassed.
Yeah. You mentioned a little bit earlier that it took a while for you to find a mentor, at least one that was willing to have a truthful conversation about what you needed as a subordinate. How since then, how much has mentorship played a role in your career? Is it something that you're seeking, doing, or and more aware of now?
So I still haven't found a whole lot of strong mentors in my military career. I would say I have one or two now, but that came from actively seeking them out. That did not come from
Mm.
me just having to cross paths with them, and then it worked out magically, right? Like I had to. I'm
Yeah.
a different person, and I know that, and I'm a very driven person, and I see things differently, which I think a lot of people respond to in the book because I just view things very differently, I think, than most military leaders. So I had to find people who could challenge the way that I think about things, right? But not in that traditional, like, this is how we do things in the military, because I got that, right?
Mhm.
20 years, I know how we
Right.
do things in the military. I need somebody who can help bring perspective to my points of views. That way I can say, oh, you're right. Like, maybe I should reconsider how I handle those situations. So that came from actively seeking those people out. It didn't come from just passively happening to know people. I'm passionate about mentorship and leadership, as you can tell. I wrote books, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to give away 3,000 this year. I
Mhm.
give them away all the time because people need these different inputs. And that's not to say that my perspective is right, but I do provide a different input for people to consider and to think about. And I think that's where the value lies. It's just sparking an idea or making somebody think about a situation in a different way helps to kind of fracture those concrete ideas that we have in our mind, and shift our way of thinking a little bit. And so that's really what the book is about, is just, hey, to initiate thinking, right, to be a catalyst to
Yeah.
changing the way that you look at stuff. And not that I'm right in any of it, right? Who knows? um, but if you have a different input that doesn't align with yours, that's the best teacher, right? If you have a teacher you agree with 100% of the time, teaching's not really good.
Mm.
The best teachers are the ones that you disagree with in a respectful way, and they help you evolve and think about things in a different way. And that's what I want the book to be about, is just giving you ideas on ways to think about things differently, and hopefully, presenting something that evolves the way that you handle people or handle a situation, and hopefully a more healthy way.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, from what I've read so far in your book, I really love the human element. Like you know, I can I can feel your humanity and your vulnerability through the way that you write it and the topics that you discuss. But you also I love the quotes that you put in there kind of that before your chapters and stuff, because it just really just flows into the topic that you're about to discuss. As a person who studies leadership, um, just the different elements that you bring into the book are so great because like I said, you kind of go full spectrum, not just, well, this is what a leader is on this side of the paper. No, it's like I said, the human element, and you have work element, you have family element, and it's just this, and I'm going to say it, a whole person concept of who you are as a person versus the idea of, oh, I'm a leader because I have this rank on.
Well, right, for me, once you get it, start to figure it out, you realize, like, being a leader is the whole person concept. Like, if
Yeah.
I'm somebody at work that I'm not at home, it doesn't work. And if I'm not doing those
Yeah.
things in my personal life, it doesn't work. So you have to fully embody who you are as a person, your flaws and your strengths, right? And whenever I wrote this book, one of the things that I've always struggled with is there's no military leadership books for enlisted people. Number one, like the enlisted
Yeah.
perspective, especially the senior NCO perspective on how you have to lead people above you, how you have to lead people below you, how
Yeah.
you have to really lead yourself. I love Simon Sinek, but his book doesn't really talk about that. And I love Brene Brown, and it doesn't talk about that military aspect. And David Goggins and all the, like, Jocko. I love those guys, but
Yeah.
the that 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 position is different. The senior NCO position is different, right? And the leadership books, I strongly believe senior enlisted leaders need to write out what it looks like to lead in that position. And that gives perspective to the officers that we are working for and advising, right? That's really our main role, senior NCOs, is to make sure that we're advising well, because
Yeah.
we're not sometimes, or most of the time, the decision maker, but we have to give good counsel, and we have to, have sound mind whenever we're doing those things, and we have to lead those below us as well. So, I think for me, that I just really wanted, this niche just isn't very well covered in leadership books, and that human element, right? Like you said, like all these different aspects of who I am as a father, or
Hmm.
as a husband, or as a, like, you do have to be one person. You can't be four people, and that takes evolving in all those different areas to kind of figure out who it is that you are, and then just lean into that person. So, but that is how you lead, is you lead from one point of, like, one set of values in all aspects of your
Yeah.
life, and you do your best that you can to influence the people who are responding to your leadership style, when you can, like. But there is no other, there aren't these other parts of you. There is one, there's just one version, and that comes through whenever people who at work are one way, and then they go home, and you can see it, like, on their Facebook or their Instagram, like, and they're different
Yeah.
there, and then they are interacting with their kids, and that's a completely different person. And one thing you'll find about me is I'm incredibly candid and authentic, as you've seen in the book, but I'm one person pretty much all the time. Like, I'm very consistent that way. Sometimes to the detriment of my wife's, like, well, how come? Like, hey, look, this is who I am. Like, I, I can only be the one person. I've felt what it's like to be the other people, and that doesn't work for me.
I love it. Yeah. Well, as we close, I just want to say, Robert, thanks again. I've really enjoyed our conversation today. Um, Before we leave, where can people follow you? Where can they find your book? Um, and I'll put it in the show notes too. But if you want to just, if you're on Facebook or Twitter or anything.
Yeah, so you can find the books on Amazon, The Paperback Mentor and Answers for Airmen. And that book, Answers for Airmen, I wrote specifically to share senior enlisted leader perspectives broadly. So it's really just to kind of give you, 20 right now people, but there's going to be an update later this year. But 20 different senior leaders' perspectives on
Mm,
topics, right? And that just,
okay.
it's not to tell you what's wrong or right, but we all need advice from different people. And so I was able to get 20 people to respond to these 10 questions, and I was honored enough to be able to present that to people, and however they want to use it. So, that's been a great book for a lot of people, and really helped start conversations and make some people think through those questions and how they would like, for instance, give advice. What advice would you give to a senior NCO transitioning to an NCO transitioning to the senior NCO
Yeah.
tier? And that's a hard transition. So we answer some of those questions in that book. You can also find me on Facebook, The Paperback Mentor, if you put in Facebook. And then I'm working on getting some other social media presence as well. But Amazon, I self published because, wanted to get the books out there. So they're only available on Amazon. And yeah, Facebook is my only
Mm,
presence right now on
mm.
social media, but that'll be changing here soon.
Okay, great. Yeah, and like I said, I'll put a link to the book in the show notes for everybody to check your stuff out. But really, just thank you again. I really enjoyed this conversation that we had today.
Thank you for the opportunity. I hope this information serves our people well, and people can hopefully learn and grow from the stuff that we talked about today. So thank you for the opportunity. I truly appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thanks, and thanks everybody for listening. This has been another Next Perspective.